Today I'm going to look at lightning photography. I get asked all the time about how I capture the lightning photos I post on our website at lostintheozarks.com, and on our Lost in the Ozarks Facebook page. So I decided to do a video on the things you need, as well as the settings I like to begin with. These are not always the settings I end up using because each shooting situation is different. You have to be able to adjust accordingly. Some storms even make you change settings and camera positions on the fly as they move and develop. Areas that are active with lightning may suddenly die down. Another area of activity may spring up as another cell develops, and you may have to adjust your camera view, or even move to a different spot to set up. Lightning photography has always fascinated me. When I started with my first DSLR camera, one of the first things I wanted to do was capture lightning. I did a lot of research on the subject and tested various techniques. What I am going to describe for you here are the two techniques I settled on to capture lightning images. Please take note. Lightning is extremely dangerous. Safety should always be your first priority. Lightning can strike without warning, and can strike up to 20 miles from the main area of the storm. Do not put yourself at risk. No photo is worth getting struck by lightning. Now let's get into how to capture amazing images of lightning. When storms happen during daylight hours, I use a device called the lightning bug camera trigger. I have placed a link to it in the description below. According to the manufacturer, this trigger senses the infrared pulse of the lightning strike and triggers the camera to fire the shutter. This happens within a fraction of a second. This allows you to catch the visible lightning strike in your image. I can't compare this trigger to other triggers on the market because this is the only one I have tried. I've only tried this one because it worked for me right out of the box. The sensitivity of the lightning bug is adjustable. This can prevent shooting a lot of spurious photos when lightning is in the clouds. The trigger can still sense the strike even when you can't see the discharge. I personally prefer to keep the setting one step below the maximum setting. I would rather throw away some images than miss a fantastic strike. Also, storage media for your camera is still relatively cheap. I routinely capture hundreds of photos and have never run out of space on a 64 gig SD card. I would suggest experimenting with the settings to find what works best with your camera. The other thing I want to mention is to make sure you order the correct cable to connect the trigger to your camera. And be sure you have an input on your camera that allows you to trigger the camera remotely. Most modern DSLRs and mirrorless cameras have that capability. My camera setup involves mounting the camera trigger on the hot shoe mount. You simply slide the trigger mount into the hot shoe and tighten it down with the tension ring. Then you connect the cable to the camera trigger and to the input on your camera. Turn them on and you are ready to shoot lightning photos. How cool is that? Be sure and mount your camera on a sturdy tripod. Thunderstorms can have strong winds associated with them, so a sturdy tripod is a must. A sturdy tripod also helps keep your camera steady. Vibration in the mount can make your photos blurry and out of focus. My preferred camera settings for daylight are aperture priority, f5.3 to f8 to get an acceptable depth of field, so everything is in focus, ISO 200 to 400. This is totally dependent on how much ambient light there is. Lightning is extremely bright, so if you bump up the ISO too much to get the foreground exposed well, you may have the lightning blown out in the image. I prefer to work with the foreground exposure in post-production. When the sun sets, I prefer to switch to long exposure photography to capture lightning images. Long exposure images require you to use the bulb setting on your camera. This allows you to hold the shutter open for long periods of time compared to daylight photography. Many cameras have a built-in ability to set the shutter speed up to 30 seconds. The problem with this is that you must press the shutter again after 30 seconds. Doing this over and over gets tiring really quick. You also can introduce shake to the camera by simply pushing the shutter button. That's why I prefer to use an intervalometer. This device plugs into your camera and allows you to set the length of time the shutter is open. You have the ability to set the number of images you want to take and the pause between opening the shutter each time. An intervalometer puts the whole process on autopilot, so you can sit back and watch the lightning show. You simply plug the device into your camera's input port, power on the device, and enter the settings using the buttons on the device. My settings when shooting at night are as follows: bulb setting, choose the widest aperture possible depending on the lens I am using, with a shutter speed of 30 seconds. Let's talk about your choice of lenses for lightning photography. You should choose a wide-angle lens. Lightning can occur anywhere in the sky. The more area the view of your lens covers, the better chance you have of capturing a good strike. A good range is somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 to 28 millimeters. I have two cameras I use for lightning imaging. I will set them both up so that they overlap coverage of the sky. This way I can cover even more area of a storm without having to move my camera as frequently. If you only have one camera, you will want to watch storms and learn where the greatest chance of activity will be. Each storm is different, so it pays to spend a little time studying about thunderstorms. I would be remiss if I didn't cover some of the safety precautions to use in the field. First, never put yourself at risk. Always stay sheltered within a building, or inside a car, when imaging, if lightning is within 20 miles of your current location. Try to use composite tripods if possible, not metal. This reduces the risk of a lightning strike on your camera's setup. Use a lightning app on your phone to monitor conditions. If lightning comes within 10 miles, bring your equipment under shelter to prevent equipment damage. Also, be aware that rain and lightning go together. You should be prepared to shelter your camera equipment from the elements. So there you have a little about how I set up to capture lightning, a little about the equipment I use, and some starting settings if you want to try and capture some lightning shots. If you like this video, please smash that like button, leave a comment, and consider subscribing to the channel. And as always, thanks for watching.